Rock, roll, and remember. Today's music one more time. Hello, everybody. I'm Gene Weed, and for the next 4 hours, we'll be taking you on a journey through your past, present, and future on Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember. This week, the subject of our special artist profile is a man who has had over 60 chart records covering all 4 seasons of rock history. Would you step up and rock, roll, and identify yourself?
Hi, this is Frankie Valli. Happy to be here with you.
Hey, we're happy you're with us too, Frankie, because we've got another special guest you know pretty well. I'm talking about Dick Clark. He'll be here to share some of his rock and roll memories with us. Not only that, but Dick will join Frank Vincent as we rock, roll, and review the music and the memories of 1969, right here on Rock, Roll, and Remember. Radio that brings you your favorite rock and roll stars. Proud to have as our special guest this week on Rock, Roll, and Remember, one of just a handful of artists who's appeared regularly on the charts from the 50s right through the 80s. I'm talking about Frankie Valli. You know, most of us first became aware of Frankie during the spring of the 4 seasons in 1962.
Actually, the 4 seasons were many things before they were the 4 seasons, which very few people are aware of. The 4 seasons were a recording entity, but a background group, and they sang backgrounds on various artists' records, and they played backgrounds. They did that for about 7 years, and in the interim, they recorded as the Village Voices, Eric Anthony, Turner DeCentury, Frankie Tyler. We could go on and on. The Romans. Every once in a while, we just took a little stab. Except for the period of time that we were with Bob Crew. We were with Bob Crew on a 3-year contract for 2 years before he actually recorded us, and we had to force him to record us. And the first record we went in to do that was really a thought-out record was Sherry. Sherry was the beginning of a long struggle. And any kind of success coming from my roots was welcome. From 1962, the very first #1 record for Frankie Valli and the 4 seasons. It's called Sherry. Hey, we've got more coming up from Frankie Valli a little later on. You know, it's kind of funny when you stop and think about it. I mean, that song, Sherry, it means a lot of different things. I mean, it can be a woman's name. We've all known ladies named Sherry. A variety of wine. Drunk a little bit of that in my time. Or in French, something totally different, including the pronunciation. And remember, today's music one more time. Hello again, I'm Gene Weed, and welcome to the second hour of Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember. Frankie Valli, the subject of this week's special artist profile, is going to be back with us this hour. We'll also be out on the street talking to people like you about your first car. And Dick Clark will be joining Frank Vincent as we rock, roll, and review the music and the memories of 1969. The band who is the subject of this week's special artist profile is back with us, speaking of Frankie Valli. Remember, in our last hour, Frankie told us how he hoped singing would provide his ticket out of poverty? Well, we asked him what happened next. I actually started out, I was about 15 years old. I had my first record out, my first solo record, without any formal education in music and whatever. And then, after that, I was addicted. There was just no turning back. I was going to have to make it now. I mean, I put my foot into this thing. It was like I jumped in the very deep water, and I better learn how to swim right there and then. And that's exactly what happened. So, just being a singer, I mean, I tried getting jobs as a singer, and that became rather difficult after a while. So the next thing was to try to get a job with a band that was already together. My first audition was the kind that I sang, and the guy liked the way I sang, but he told me that he needed a bass player that sang. And I went out and bought a bass and faked it for 3 years. I mean, I was going to make it. I made up my mind.
Frankie Valli and the
great Four Seasons again. This one from 1976, December 1963. Oh, what a night. Interestingly enough, that isn't the only song with that title. These are the Dells from 1969. We're talking once again with the subject of this week's special artist profile here on Rock, Roll, and Remember, Frankie Valli. You know, the songs of the Four Seasons were so perfect for Frankie's voice. Kind of wonder whether Frankie actually wrote them.
I wasn't actually involved in the writing. I really never wanted to be involved in the writing because I felt that once I would get involved in that, I couldn't look at it as objectively as I might want to. But my partner, Bob Gaudio, did most of the writing with Bob Crew. And what they would do is write the material, and then we'd go over it, and with the feeling of whether we liked it or not. That's how it came about. When I think about it now, and it's Walk Like a Man, and I think about the song, I mean, there's nothing spectacular to remember except that it was a #1 record, and it was the beginning of a new kind of music. It was setting the pace for something new, and it was at a time where the industry needed something. It needed a boost. It sounded like a hit song to me. The song had a whole lot to say. It was an overall record kind of song.
Another #1 record for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, this time from 1963, Walk Like a Man. And that man will be back with us with more stories and songs in the second half of Rock, Roll, and Remember. Today's music one more time. Hello, everybody. I'm Gene Weed. Welcome back to the second half of this week's edition of Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember. Hey, we got a lot of happenings going on this hour. Frankie Valli is the subject of this week's special artist profile. He'll be back with us. And Dick Clark will share some more of his inside memoried stories. Dick will also be joining Frank Vincent as we rock, roll, and review the music and memories from 1969. We're back again with the subject of this week's special artist profile here on Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember, Mr. Frankie Valli. You know, Frankie's voice gave the Four Seasons one of the most distinctive sounds in pop history. I think we'll all agree to that. And we asked Frankie how they managed to achieve that unique sound.
Well, most of the songs that were done in those days were constructed with my vocal range in mind. And Bob Gaudio, knowing that I had a 3.5 octave vocal range, he just used it to the best of his ability. What we did with the harmony, the easiest way I can explain this so that a layman might be able to understand is the fifth dimension, having two girls in the act and doing a lot of unison, which is not harmony. It's just singing together and everybody's singing the melody, but doing the octaves, the two girls doing the octave above and the boys singing the octave below makes a fatter sound. So the same thing happens with harmony when you spread it. When you take it, you either have voices that are very similar and very short ranges, and the harmony is very close, and that harmony just tends to sound very close. It never really gets that big, angelic, or cathedral choir kind of sound. What happens when you spread the chord like that, you create overtones. You think you're hearing other notes, and you aren't. You're hearing 3 pure notes and 1 double. The bass is usually doubling the top, and it's so far away that it sounds like another part. Big girls don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Big girls don't cry.
The biggest selling record in the entire career of Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, for good reasons. It was great. Big Girls Don't Cry. 1962 was the year. Of course, this week's special guest, Frankie Valli, with us again. As successful as his career with the Four Seasons has been, Frankie's solo career has also been equally brilliant, but not always so easy. Sometimes it's kind of hard getting those singles released. Right, Frankie?
Well, what happened was that we'd gone in and cut a number of sides. I think in all at the time it was about 6 sides, and I think 3 or 4 of them were mine, and the rest belonged to the group. And we'd done those for Motown and brought them into Motown, and they weren't overly thrilled about the whole thing. So they had My Eyes Adored You was one of the sides, and they had that about a year and a half before it was actually released. Because when we left Motown, it was the only thing we were interested in buying back. We bought it back, I think, for $4,000.
That song that almost never was released went #1 in gold in 1975. Frankie Valli and My Eyes Adored You. Frankie will be back with us in the next hour of Rock, Roll, and Remember. We're back once more with the subject of this week's special artist profile here on Rock, Roll, and Remember, Mr. Frankie Valli. In our last hour, Frankie told us of the difficulty he had in getting My Eyes Adored You released, remember? Well, he then encountered problems in getting his follow-up record played.
Well, I think everybody was waiting for the obvious, another ballad. And if you look at the structure of the Four Seasons success, you will find that although the group sound was always the same, the songs were all different. We never followed with the same kind of a song. Structurally, the song was completely different. And I just felt that out of everything we'd recorded, Swearing to God was the freshest thing that I had heard in a very long time. And I also knew that there was going to be some problems with it in certain parts of the country with the connotation of swearing to God. And I did lose a certain part of the country on that record. How anybody could look at that song or anything about that song and find anything offensive in it is something that I will never understand.
That was a top 10 record for Frankie Valli in the year 1975, Swearing to God. You know, from today's vantage point, why Frankie had trouble getting airplay for that record, well, God only knows. As you've obviously noticed by now, Frankie Valli has been the subject of this week's special artist profile here on Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember. You know, Frankie's been enjoying success for well over a quarter century. That's an enviable record in any business, especially the music business. And that's why we ask him, what makes Frankie run?
I must say that the major thrust of my success has been incentive. Not being afraid to work, regardless of how hard, how many hours. Not complaining about who was happening when I wasn't happening. Just thinking about that I wasn't happening and had to get myself happening. And, you know, you meet so many people who talk out of both sides of their face. I don't gear myself to get up on stage and give any message. The message is fun and entertainment, because I'm not an expert on any of these other things. So in order for me to experience everything in life, I get the feeling that one would have had to be here many times to experience everything.
Is the word, and it's the #1 and platinum sound for Frankie Valli in 1978. By the way, big thanks to Frankie Valli for being our special guest this week on Rock, Roll, and Remember. You know, when you think of Jimmy Page, you think of his blistering guitar work as a member of the Yardbirds and Led Zeppelin. But what you don't think of is this record on which he plays lead guitar